Thank you. Staff, are y'all ready? Good. 7 o'clock, I will call this meeting of the Westfield, Washington Township Board of Zoning Appeals to order. First item of business is noting the presence of a quorum. Staff?
Ms. Fortier.
Here.
Mr. Hatfield.
Here.
Mr. Schmitz.
Here.
Mr. McCarty.
Here.
Mr. Buller.
Here.
We have a quorum.
The next item on the agenda is election of officers for 2023. The floor is open for nominations.
I nominate Dave Schmitz as president.
I second that.
Do we take these individually? Okay.
Oh, there she is.
Okay. I mean, it needs to be what? Roll
Verbal-
call.
Roll
yes.
call, roll
Yeah,
call.
but also individual offices as well. not-
Yes, yes, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun on your question.
Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded for myself as chairman or president. What is that office? Chair for the, for 2023. Dan, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Fortier.
Yes.
Mr. Hatfield.
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz.
Yes,
Mr. McCarty.
Yes.
Mr. Buller.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. And then vice chair, which is currently Victor. I'll open the floor for nominations.
I'll make a motion that we re-elect Victor as vice chair. I second.
Motion by Mr. Bowler, seconded by Mr. Hatfield to consider Victor as vice chairman for 2023. Dane, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Fortier.
Yes.
Mr. Hatfield.
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz.
Yes.
Mr. McCarty.
Yes.
Mr. Buller.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We also have a pro temp position, I believe, to consider. And was that? Yeah, third in the line of succession. And and we didn't have, I think, did we have one or did we lose ours?
Yeah.
Or no, it was Janine, right? Janine,
Yeah.
were you pro temp?
I'm fairly certain.
That face says it all.
Okay, well, the floor is open for nominations for pro tem among the other three of you.
I nominate Janine Fortier for pro temp.
I'll second that.
Motioned by Mr. Hatfield, seconded by Mr. Bowler for Janine Fortier as pro tem for 2023. Dane, call the roll, please.
Ms. Fortier.
Yes.
Mr. Hatfield.
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz.
Yes,
Mr. McCarty.
Yes.
Mr. Buller.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. And thank you all. Next item for consideration is the minutes of the December 13th, 2022 meeting. We've all had the opportunity to review those minutes. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns about those minutes?
No, I make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bowler, seconded by Victor to approve the meeting minutes from December 13th, 2022. Dane, call the roll, please.
Ms. Fortier.
Yes.
Mr. Hatfield.
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz.
Yes,
Mr. McCarty.
Yes.
Mr. Buller.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. And will you please review the rules and procedures for tonight's meeting, please, Dan?
Yes, for all petitions, tonight's meeting has the following structure. The department will summarize the petition and describe what action, if any, is necessary to be taken. Then the petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present to the board. The president will open a public hearing. Individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak. Those representing a group will be given 5 minutes to speak. Only one member of the group will be given 5 minutes to speak, and for efficiency purposes, we ask that those representing a group speak first. The public hearing will be closed when all interested members of the audience have had a chance to be heard and all emails received during the meeting have been provided to board members. The petitioner will then have a chance to respond to comments, and the board will follow with any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the petition. Please do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time. If you must answer them, please quietly exit the room. If you are attending in person and wish to speak in regard to a petition scheduled for a public hearing, once the public hearing is opened by the president, then please approach the podium and write your name and address on the sign-in sheet I'm holding here. If you're not attending in person, comments regarding a petition should be emailed to planners@westfield.in.gov with the petition name or number included in the subject line. Those comments will be forwarded to board members and the petitioner. During your comments, please state your name and address into the microphone for the record. We ask that you not repeat previously stated comments. Your presentation will be timed and you will be advised when there is approximately 30 seconds remaining. We would like to remind everyone to please speak directly into the microphone so your comments can be put onto the record. Thank you.
Thank you. We have two matters to consider this evening. First of which is 2301 VS01. Approximate address 1549 Chatham Villages Boulevard, CHLL LLC, represented by V3 Companies, seeking a variance of development standard to reduce the number of off-site parking spaces for multifamily dwellings in the Chatham Hills PUD. And the staff reviewer is Lauren Gillingham.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, Lauren Gillingham with the Community Development Department. Excuse me. This property is located at approximately 1549 Chatham Villages Boulevard within the Chatham Hills PUD District. Petitioner is before you this evening for a variance of development standard to reduce the required amount of off-street parking for multifamily uses from 2 spaces per dwelling unit to 1.8 spaces per dwelling unit. After my staff report was published, I received a request for some additional information, just comparing how the requested parking ratios match up with other multifamily developments approved within Westfield. I've distributed a memo for your review. The public hearing has been properly noticed and advertised, and staff has received no public comments. Petitioner is here tonight and plans on making a brief presentation. We're both available for questions. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead and push the button in front.
Name.
Okay, I am Jordan Dorsey with Mia Rose Holdings. My address is 8620 Neely Lane in Edwardsville, Illinois. And I am the petitioner and applicant requesting the variance for the multifamily project at Chatham Village. We're requesting the variance for a couple of reasons. One, based on our experience on very similar projects throughout other locations, Missouri and Arkansas, a 1.8 ratio is generous and more than sufficient for operations based on our personal experience in similar projects. And then secondarily, based on the shape of the parcel, we're working with some pretty narrow areas on the northern portions of the parcel. Fitting additional parking would be extremely difficult, if not impractical. So for those two reasons, just a couple highlights on the project. We're really excited about this one. It's our first project in Westfield and in Indiana, actually. So, 250 apartments. We've got a breakdown of 124 one-bedrooms, 114 two-bedrooms, and 12 three-bedrooms. And so as part of consideration for the parking ratio, we actually did 1.5 per one-bedroom, 2 for 2, and 3 for 3. And so we feel we'll have more than sufficient parking for the project. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Repeat that, you said it kind of fast. So you guys based your number on 1.5 for one-bedroom unit, 2 for two-bedroom, 3 for three-bedroom?
Correct.
Okay. And that added up to, that allowed you to meet the 1.8?
That's a 1.8 ratio.
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Yep.
I'll go ahead and open a public hearing at 7:09. Do we have anyone that has signed up?
We have no one that has signed up. And we do not have any public comments.
Okay, I'll give it a minute or so for that while I need to look over the handout we have since I was a little late. And a quick question for staff. What is the standard? I know I looked, but now I'm not finding it again, of what we're being asked to vary.
Yeah, the UDO standard is 2 spaces per
Two.
dwelling unit.
Thank you. Any communication?
We have no virtual comment.
I'll close the public hearing at 7:11. So it looks like we really, from the materials you passed out, the Grand Park Village, Charleston on the Monon, that's I think under construction now, had higher than 1.8. The rest were at or lower, correct? Interpreting that right?
That is correct.
And of these ones that are complete, Harmony's complete, although I don't know how occupied it is. Union Street Flats has been around a while. I wouldn't know whether it is or whether it isn't. I'm just wondering, have you had any complaints brought in on any of them with, people parking in the streets and the kind of things you run into when there's a shortage of parking?
Yeah, no, we've not received any complaints. Typically, those would be handled by fire or police if there are public safety issues like that. But, obviously sometimes we get that correspondence as well if, just
Nothing's
because
made
people
it
don't
to
know
you.
who to contact. But no, we have not.
Okay, thank you.
Might show how inefficient I am at math here, but am I doing it right that 250 times 1.8, 450, about 450 parking spots?
And those parking spots are not including the garages, correct, that are on there, or are they? They do include the garages. And those are one-car garages, correct? I don't know what the breakdown is, but I can look at the, yeah, so like,
Yeah, those are all garages.
So the breakdown on the current site plan is 391 standard spaces, 9 ADA, 48 garages, and 2 ADA garages. Yep. And we do enforce a policy that garages are not allowed to be used as storage, so they have to have a vehicle.
How do you do that if the door's closed?
Through the management company. So the garages are first come, first serve, and they're for rent. And so if you're violating the policy, you'll get your garage taken away.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume nobody would. It seems like an inefficient way to do it, but still, if the door's shut, then, okay. Any questions from members of the board? Janine, any comments, concerns, questions from you?
No, I really don't have any concerns. I do have a comment, though. If the UDO says 2 spaces per DU, and all of these other ones have changed, evidently they've gone through the variances, do we need to look at this again? I'm just kind of confused as to why it was so generously set at 2 spaces and everybody is using less than that. And that makes them all have to go through this process. And then we're going to have more apartments coming, I'm sure. And it will just continue. So it's just a concern that I have for the future. And it seems like Westfield is not very good about their parking. So I don't want us to be branded as like being chintzy on our parking. But I do understand it. I think people don't drive as much as they used to, though we are still out in suburbia. We're not in urban land yet. So that's just my comment on that.
I
Thanks.
think there is an explanation as to the fact that these were approved with these standards. Staff, it'd probably be best if you handle that.
Right, so these are all PUDs. So these, this parking ratio was negotiated with the PUD process. And these, so I specifically selected ones that didn't follow the 2 parking space requirement by the UDO. And there are plenty of multifamily projects that do follow that. So technically these did not go through the BZA, it was all through the APC, rezone PUD creation process.
Thank you, that helps a lot.
But I think the point remains that we don't want to be underparked, but on the same hand, you read stuff now where there's a lot of efforts to minimize parking, at least from a planning perspective, and not have big asphalt fields and kind of minimize the parking. So it kind of cuts both ways. That's why I was wondering if any of these established projects, if we had, since they've been accepted at these levels, whether we've had parking constraints and problems. Anyone else, any questions, comments?
I'm just kind of thinking out loud, you know, so it's 50 less spaces. And so just my thought process with this would be, one, have you seen issues in prior developments of yours of parking issues? And two, does your customer, the audience that you're catering to, do they typically need transportation and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so similar projects are in very similar municipalities in St. Charles County outside of St. Louis, for example, or Northwest Arkansas. And so we have projects that range from 1.4 to 1.7 to 1.8. We don't have anything higher than 1.8. And if there's anybody vested in making sure that our residents aren't angry about parking, it's us, because they won't move in if they have those challenges. And so by no means, we do have physical constraints here, but we certainly feel that a 1.8 ratio is on the high end for satisfactory parking in a similar situation.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure, because to Janine's point, that is a problem that we have, not just here in Westfield, but I mean, all over Hamilton County. So I just want to make sure we're doing our due diligence here. With it being kind of packed into the Chatham Hills area, though, I could see as this area is developing, it becoming more about being walkability as opposed to driving, but still having those parking spaces will be nice. And one other question I had earlier, for the amenities, will those pretty much be exclusive to those who live on the premises?
Yeah, correct. We'll have a pool, pickleball court, golf simulator. We have this property actually sits on the lake that you can see off the interstate. So we'll have a pier for fishing and that sort of thing. So highly amenitized property. And then just an additional note, like we did, obviously, the Hinkie Development Group has reviewed this and we've had these discussions, and you know, they have a vested interest to make sure that we have sufficient parking on our site, so we're not on their streets and the surrounding residential areas, and they agree that they feel that a 1.8 ratio is more than sufficient for this size of project.
Thank you.
Is there anything within the lease or any of your paperwork with the tenants that limits them as far as, because what if you have a family that rents the 3-bedroom and has 5 cars? Is there anything that stops them from using 5 parking spaces?
We don't typically see that, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's a fair concern. Like, that could come up. We do require tenants to register their cars with management. We'd
But
be
in
able to,
terms of limits, there's really not.
there isn't a limit in the lease that says you can't have a certain number of cars.
Okay, I understand. Anything else?
Yeah, I would just say, you know, it is a luxury. I don't know what the rents, do you have, can you give me any idea of what the rents start out at?
Yeah, certainly. So we benchmark rents off of today's rates, and so certainly when this opens, they could potentially be higher. But a 1-bedroom starts around $1,430 and goes up to $2,000 for a 3-bedroom.
Okay, nice. Random question. In terms of visitors, because that might be where you surpass that 50 threshold there. will visitors have to like go to a check-in center and get like a visitor pass or something like that to be able to park their car on premises, or?
We do have properties that have those types of rules in this particular location. I don't think that's going to be a problem. But that would really be, we take the advice of our management
Yeah,
company.
if it becomes an issue, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
It looks like it's gonna be nice. Do you have a provision in place in case you do need further parking? I mean, is there some place that you could put it, like if you determine, you know, over the next year that, hey, we're gonna need some additional parking, could you put some, you know, contingencies in place or something like that?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure exactly how we would accomplish that.
Uh-huh.
You know, working with the engineers on this site, we've literally put parking in every inch that's available
Okay.
without making it feel, like you said, like just a giant paved piece of property.
Right. You could take away from the dog park, but
We
that
we
would-
could, yeah, we could take some
would-
away some of the amenities.
Sure, that would,
And do some
that would
additional
make,
paving.
that would make, yeah, that would make some people unhappy.
Are those lighter ones that look like they're in the road right away? Are those spaces to the right, on the far right along those are lighter, that's the, not sure.
Yeah, that's just the separation line
Oh,
between the
okay, I
sheets.
gotcha. It wasn't-
Mhm. That's these right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I see it now. Anything else?
I'll just, don't mean to keep you here, of course, but just have one thought. With this being kind of in a premium location along 31, I appreciate that it's not just a sea of parking as people are driving by. I think more so it's divided up on that map as opposed to the other side, because you see along 31, if you could scroll down, please, Dane. On that one, just along 31 there, it's a lot of parking that people will see as they're driving by. But you're working with what you can here on the land. So my point was just appreciate it not being a complete sea of parking.
Yeah.
Is there a
And we
grade
are,
difference there? I'm sorry for interrupting. Is there a grade difference with 31 or are you at grade with the road?
it's fairly flat throughout the property. Actually, our finished floor of most of these 8 buildings is identical, so it will be a fairly flat site. We're also dealing with a number of utility easements that run along 31, one of which is more recently put in place. But when we submit our detailed development plan, I believe there's a significant buffer requirement as well. So a lot of that landscaping, or a lot of that parking will be buffered by landscaping and berming that's already in place.
Good. The most recent development I can think of that's happening down in Carmel along 31 it's apartments similar to yours, but they have the apartment buildings closer to 31 with the parking in the back. So I appreciate hearing that you'll have the buffering and so forth. So again, you keep it as beautiful as possible along 31.
And we do have a number of garages. The garages are the darker rectangular areas. And so we have used those garages to create additional buffer, and then they'll of course be landscaped around the back too.
Is that 2-acre parcel part of your property?
That is not part of our property now.
Okay.
All right. If anyone else has any questions or comments, let's hear them. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve 2301-VS-01 with the following 2 recommended conditions. The variance shall be limited to the 11.6 acres plus minus shown in Exhibit A of the statement of intent. And number 2, the development plan must meet all other applicable standards of the PUD and UDO.
I'll second that.
One clarification, Lauren, there's a number 3 with no text. Is that,
Oh, there is.
was that in the recommended conditions?
Pardon me?
When I'm looking at the staff report, the recommended conditions, there's a number 3, but there's no text after it. Was text omitted, or was the number 3 there unnecessarily?
That is a typo.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's all right. So we have a motion and a second to approve 2301 VS-01, subject to this two recommended conditions in the staff report. Dane, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hatfield,
Yes.
Mr. Bowler,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Ms. Fortier.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and I'll make a motion to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2301 VS-01. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Mr. Bowler to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2301 VS-01. Dane, can you call the roll?
Mr. Hatfield,
Yes.
Mr. Bowler,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Ms. Fortier.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Matters approved.
Thank you. Safe travels home.
Next item on the agenda is 2301 VU01, 16708 Dean Road, Essler Properties by Morrison Bickle PC, seeking a temporary extension of existing variances of use to prevent the following: an auto service facility, number 2, outside storage vehicles, boats and trailers, number 3, warehouse, inside storage, number 4, a trucking company on 4.59 acres in the enclosed industrial and US Highway 31 overlay district. And the planner presenter is Mr. Crabtree.
Evening, members of the board. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is a request to temporarily extend existing variances of use at 16708 Dean Road, a 4.59 acre parcel zoned enclosed industrial and located in the US Highway 31 overlay. These existing variances permit an auto service facility, outside storage of vehicles, boats, and trailers, warehouse inside storage, and a trucking company. Some of these uses have been permitted since the November 9th, 2010 BZA meeting, but all 4 have been permitted since at least March 10th, 2020, when the BZA granted the variances with a 2-year time limit expiring on December 31st, 2020. As such, the uses have technically been out of compliance for 10 days. The petitioner is requesting to extend the existing variances. In the staff report, it is reflected that the petitioner was originally requesting a 5-year extension. They have just relayed to me they were amenable to reducing that to 3 years, which is really the typical time frame we suggest for variances that are temporary and things like that. So they are willing to do that. However, if the board is inclined to approve the variances, they may suggest a time different from that. John Morse of Morse & Bickle PC is present this evening to give a brief presentation, after which he'll be available for questions, and this item has been properly noticed and advertised. Staff received no comments.
Sorry, before you mentioned the issue with the years, where did staff land on that?
So the petitioner had originally met with staff, and on their application, they had proposed a extension of 5 years for the existing variances, and through relayed emails, it was made the petitioner aware that staff would prefer 3 years if the board was inclined to approve these variances. And I was just told that the petitioner is amenable to reducing it from a 5-year request to 3 years.
Very good, thank you.
So,
Thank you for the clarification. Petitioner.
John Morse, Morse & Bickle, 1411 Roosevelt Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46201. I don't really have much to add because Mr. Crabtree has set this out fairly well, but just want to point out that Bob's Garage has been operating at that location since 2010, well over 10 years, and this is the third re-up on the variance request. And I note that Mr. Crabtree talked about us being out of compliance for 10 days. That was just a matter of logistics. Mr. Essler is retired and travels a lot and simply couldn't get his signature on the variance application in time to make the December meeting. But happy to answer any questions. Don't think we have any, hopefully, any issues that would cause this to be denied.
Thank you. One initial question. When the variance was considered the last time, there was the issue of the pole sign. Can you update me on the status, update us on the status of that, please?
Sure. The pole sign issue is gone. The pole is gone. There's no pole on the,
Permanently gone elsewhere?
yes, elsewhere. That's related to the issue between GEFT and the city of Westfield, and that lawsuit settled, which resulted.
It did settle. I wasn't aware of the status. Okay.
Yeah,
But it is removed off the
I'm
site.
only aware of that it settled and that the pole is gone.
And it's gone. That's the main thing. Thank you for that update. Much appreciated. Questions?
Is that why it was only, because the first time, the variance was allowed for 5 years, then the second time it was only allowed for 3, and then the third time it was only allowed for 2. So is that why it was only allowed
Is that,
for 2?
I think it was because of the different uses that were, the Bob's Garage part of it has been, that, Dane, you could probably straighten that out.
Yeah, unfortunately, Pam was the staff planner on the old ones, but I believe it's correct, like the Colt Moving Company was not originally there.
That was an
and
add-on,
came on
essentially.
board, so that required a new variance and things of that nature.
If I can.
Go ahead,
respond to that.
please.
It
Yes.
actually was 3 years. It was just the timing. It needed to be, it was originally set for approval in 2019.
Right.
But we actually, because of continuances and timing of the meetings, we didn't actually have our meeting till 2020. So I do believe it was still a 3-year variance, but it was 2019 was when it was filed.
As if it had been considered in 19.
Correct, but it
Okay.
did not, it was not considered until, I'm going to say February of 2020.
And as I
was
recall, that
March.
there was.
March?
Yeah.
It was brought in, the uses were, some of the uses were added on, the building place and, I mean, the moving place were not a part of the original.
We had,
Well, the last renewal, they were subsequently added to it, right?
that is correct.
Yeah.
We filed and then we had to amend, and then it was heard in evidently March.
Yeah,
Okay.
March 10th.
So essentially, we've had these approved uses in place by variance for some period of time. Have we had any enforcement matters related to these uses?
No, at least certainly not since the last variance was approved and, you know, unrelated to the sign issue that we've already previously discussed, no.
Yeah, outside of the sign, okay.
Who owns the buildings behind this property? There are 3 long buildings that show up. To the north. Those.
We need to have him in the mic.
Sure.
Come on up and say your name and address for the public record, please.
Bill Essler, 15254 Dan Patch Court, Carmel, 46032. That, all the way from 169 to those 3 buildings is a gentleman that I believe still lives in Michigan. He used to rent it out to Wicks Lumber Yard when that was all a Wicks Lumber Yard. He added 3 more buildings for them since they didn't have the land and he needed more growth. So that is, I'm not sure if anybody else has bought it since then, but I think he's still the guy from Michigan.
Okay, so you don't use that?
No, that's nothing to do with us.
Okay.
So the moving, Colt's moving people, the building that they use is the red roof one?
Colt Moving's moved down to 32.
Oh, yeah, but the one that
not-
they were in,
that was a
when you
temp-
got,
yeah, that was in
when you
that,
got the variance was the red building, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything else?
On the acknowledgement of variance that's dated August 27th, 2020, and the one I have is not signed, it states that you will continue to make improvements to the property and the building. Have you made any such improvements over the last couple of years since the last variance was allowed?
I can't speak to that, but my recollection was that that was actually removed from the variance because that continued to improve the property. I don't believe that was something, I was at least told by Ms. Howard, I believe, that that's not something that's part of a variance.
It's not listed on one of the conditions here.
I should add, that's why it's not part of this application. It was part of the 2019 application.
Statement of intent.
One of the conditions of approval was excluding item number 5, which may be what you're referring to.
Right.
So that was excluded from a condition, likely because the enforcement of the vagueness of that was going to be impossible.
Okay.
It was excluded in the text above or in the actual vote or something? Oh, yeah, it says,
It was,
the
in
condition
fact,
number 1 as, well, the uses described as items 1 through 4 in the statement of intent, and it's number 5.
Right.
So it wasn't part of
Okay.
the approval. Anything else? Questions, comments? Janine, want to jump in? Any questions, comments, concerns, anything you have?
No, I have no questions or comments. Thank you.
Did I do a public hearing?
No.
No.
I never did. I'm on my game tonight. I'm going to open the public hearing at 7:37. Do we have any electronic communication? Thank you. And we don't have anyone in the audience besides petitioner and people with petitioners, so we'll give it a minute or so to see if anything else comes in.
Just so we don't waste any more time, one question that I had, in terms of the trucking business, with the improvements to 31, has that significantly negatively impacted the business?
With the bridge going over? Honestly, not really. I mean, if we were a restaurant, it'd probably struggle a little more, I would think, but it's more of a destination. People are going there for a reason. They were told to go there, or they know of us, so they make the extra effort to get there. But did it stop a lot of the, Friday afternoon breakdowns that are trying to get to Michigan that like broke down right there and they can pull right off and get to our road? It stopped some of that, but not really affecting us. I mean, I think if we had access to the highway right there, yeah, it would probably increase business, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it really hurt it.
Yeah, I just travel to and from work every day, and sometimes I look to my right and I see y'all, and I'm like, oh man, I remember back in the day when you did have connection to 31. So and I've always been curious about how it's impacted the business, and also more so along 161st. No, not 160. Is that 161st? No,
69.
69. Thank you. How trucks are able to turn in and out of the entrance to your property as well. So.
Right,
So anyway, I was just thinking about you.
all right, I appreciate it.
Any communication?
No electronic communication.
I will close the public hearing at 7:39. Any remaining questions, comments, concerns?
Has there been other interest in the space that is to the south?
So you might recall a year and a half ago or so when our came through with a failed petition to put up some townhomes and some offices, and there has been interest in the property to the south, but no filed petitions, nothing of that nature.
Okay. My only comment, and I think it's a great business, and so I'm very happy that you're there, is that it is noted and categorized as a high-intensity retail, which is supposed to be excluded. And I don't know at some point if there is more development that happens to the south of you that may impact you. And so I would like to see it just be 3 years instead of 5, which, you know, you'll come back in 3 years and it'll be fine. So, I mean, it's just, you know, it's unfortunate you'll have to come back, but that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I think the petitioners indicated that's acceptable and staff as well, so.
Yeah, so
And
then
that gives the,
just to clarify the condition of approval in the staff report, I put an X on the year. So this would be December 31st, 25 would be the expiration.
27, right?
No, because we're doing 3 years. So all of 23, 24, 25.
25.
Correct.
Yep, I had to do it too, using the fingers.
Gotta do
and everything,
fingers.
man.
Yeah, and I think that meets the objectives of at least us to maintain some flexibility for future uses that the city would deem more desirable long-term and take care of an important, successful local business in the meantime. And if there's any changes, that the business owner will benefit from that as well. So if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve petition number 2301-VU-01-16708 Dean Road under the following conditions. 1, the uses shall be limited to the uses described in items 1 to 4 on the statement of intent on the petitioner's application, see Exhibit 5. And 2, approval of this variance shall expire on December 31st, 2025. Any request to extend the time limit of this variance shall be reviewed and approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals prior to December 31st, 2025.
Second.
Motion by Noble, seconded by Victor to approve 2301 VU01, subject to the stated conditions. Dane, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Buller,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Ms. Fortier,
Yes.
Mr. Hatfield.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And I'll make a motion to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2301 VU01.
I second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Noble to approve or adopt staff's findings, recommended findings of fact for this petition. Dane, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Buller,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Ms. Fortier,
Yes.
Mr. Hatfield.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Matter's approved. Bill, please relate to your family a thank you for the issue that the sign thing has gone away. That's an important thing to a lot of people in this community, and we are very happy to not have that sign issue.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Next.
Hey, when are you having some car shows?
I know, we've been hearing about that, we need to bring it back.
Yes, do it.
Next, reports and comments, Plan Commission Liaison.
I don't believe we met between BZA meetings, did we?
In this case, we just would have had the meeting at the.
Oh, yeah, we did, never
Yeah,
mind.
and I don't,
We
is
met
there anything of-
BZA 1213, but APC was 1219. Consent agenda was KCG at Wheeler Landing, northwest corner of 181st Grand Park Boulevard. And our workshop item was this, the continued Woods Robinson Briggs PUD. That was it.
Plan Commission is meeting the next 2 Mondays, so
Yeah.
the orders are a little out of whack.
I'm all turned around.
Thank you. Community Development Department.
We good?
Okay.
That's the best.
You got petitions for next month?
Not yet. Filing deadline for BZA is next Friday, I believe. So
There's still another week.
something. We had pre-filing meetings with 2 folks today, so my guess is we'll
Have
be
something.
here.
Okay. Yeah, but not in a while. All right, takes care of everything on the agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motioned and seconded to adjourn. Dane, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Ms. Fortier?
Yes.
Mr. Hatfield?
Yes.
Mr. Bowler?
Yes.
We're adjourned.
I hope you
Thank you
feel
very
better,
much. We're
Janine.
adjourned.
Yeah, feel better, Janine.
See you in person next time.
Thank you.
I can bring some soup by if you want some.